welcome to Practical Shooting Explained. Today we've got a gear review going on. So the way we handle reviews is, of course, we get an expert on the horn and talk to them on Skype. But today it's just the two of us, Joel.
Indeed, it is.
All right. Why is it just the two of us?
Because this is the gun that we both shoot in competition in Tanfoglio Stock 2.
Or otherwise known as the EAA Witness. I think the EAA Witness Elite is how they sell this in the U.S. But yes,
that might be right.
Today we are talking about the Stock 2. Okay, so why is this a desirable pistol for competition shooters, Joel?
There's a lot of things to talk about. I guess probably the first thing to talk about that most people recognize right off the bat is the weight. So yes. It's a metal framed gun compared to some people that shoot what I suppose Glocks or XDs, Canics, some of the polymer guns. So this gun's metal, which means it's heavier, and perceived recoil, I suppose, is less for most people. Is that a fair way to say it?
Yeah, so definitely the trend in competition shooting, well, especially like practical competition shooting, has been towards heavier pistols to soak up recoil. So yeah, what do these things weigh? 44 ounces or something like that? 43? I have no idea.
Sounds good.
But do you know or no?
I do not know.
Yeah, it's something like that. So these are towards the heavier end of the spectrum, which is why these are a relatively popular choice for practical shooting. Mm-hmm. And why? Yeah, both of us use these. So let's talk through the features that are on here. So we have the removable grip panels, which is nice because you can swap to aftermarket grips to get the gun fitted to you. I pretty much would not consider a pistol without a feature like this these days.
I would agree completely, because some guns, like as a comparison, you buy it, it just is what it is. And then if you don't like it, maybe you add grip tape. But like what Ben said, the cool part about this gun is I actually have palm swells on my gun. You can see it well.
I do not have palm swells.
So the grip in my gun actually it kind of flares out in the middle. So it's got a different contour. It's not just the same the whole way down. Ben has Henning grips, I believe, on his.
Yes.
So yeah, so
both of us has changed aftermarket grips to get them fitted, but I can't think of a popular gun for practical shooting these days that doesn't have either interchangeable back straps, grip modules, or grip panels.
Yep.
I mean, without this, the lack of this feature, in my estimation, is basically disqualifying.
I would agree.
Okay.
So our guns feel quite a bit different with just one different part and a few screws. The next thing, go ahead, sorry.
No, so the main feature that makes this thing interesting is that's a double single gun. So it's a double action first shot, like so, single action second shot. Again, that's another feature that's very interesting for practical shooting because they're required to start with the hammer down and then go from there. You're not allowed to use single action pistols for most practical shooting matches. So yes, that's another main feature. So yes, go ahead, Joel, with what you were going to say.
The other feature that I really like a lot about these are the adjustable sights. So with some guns, when you buy it, it just is what it is out of the box, or maybe you're buying different sights to replace it. This gun comes with an adjustable sight. So for competition shooting, what most people prefer is to have a fiber optic front sight. So it's a regular blade with a fluorescent tube, I suppose you'd say, that's really high visibility, put in that notch. So for what we do, this gun comes with a plain black front sight. Ben and I have both changed that out. So we have a fiber optic front sight, an adjustable rear sight that has an elevation and a windage adjustment. So that way, when you buy the gun, you take it out and you shoot at the range. If the bullets aren't printing exactly where you're looking or where you think they should be hitting, just with a screwdriver, you change that. It's super easy.
Yeah.
So that's a big deal. That's like a make or break.
Yeah, and then I think the other feature that's noteworthy to many people, I don't think it's that interesting, but the bull barrel, I don't think that really helps accuracy, but it does put a lot of extra weight in the barrel, up front towards the end of the gun, and it helps make the gun feel a little bit softer.
Yep, and I think even more than the bull barrel, possibly what a lot of feedback, what people like about this gun is kind of the neutral balance, where it doesn't feel like, the bull barrel puts weight up front, but notice some guns have a really heavy, like a light rail, I suppose.
Yeah, light rail on the dust cover.
Where you could put a flashlight on it or something like that, like a Picatinny style rail, where this doesn't have that. So it's smooth along the front. It's got that bull barrel on the front, but it's just really, it's weighted very neutral, I think is a good way to say it. So it doesn't feel like all the weight's in the muzzle, and it doesn't feel like all the weight's in the back.
Yeah, and I think the other noteworthy feature for these pistols would be sort of the way that you can configure the gun more to fit yourself. So from the factory, they'll have different triggers, different style safeties. So you can have more or less safety, or even a flat safety. You can have a trigger that's, you know, a different shape. And again, that's just to make it easy to get the gun fitted for you. So that's another important thing to point out, that, you know, I would say it's an important feature of this gun.
I agree.
So what are these things? Are these $1,100 new, something like that?
I think around street prices, I think around like $950 to $1,000. I think.
I think they've gone up because they have MAP now that they enforce.
Okay.
Minimum advertised pricing. Let me check. BenStegerProShop.com. Let's see what these things are going for, because I think they've gone up a little bit. But anyway, what's that, Joel?
I said that might be the case.
Yeah, so it looks like they're listed at $1,200 now for the 9mm ones.
Okay.
So gone up a little bit because they're enforcing minimum pricing on it, but oh well. Great.
Okay.
So what's your favorite things about this pistol, Joel?
Honestly, just the way that I can, like what you said earlier, I can configure it any way to fit my hands. So I've got different grips. I have a aftermarket front sight that's also thinner than what comes in the gun. I like that, so I can have distance between both sides of the front sight and the rear notch. The grips. So this gun, I mean, this gun just feels like amazing in my hands, honestly. Just when I grip the gun, I don't feel like I have to add or subtract like grip tape, or I want to remove material. I just draw the gun. It balances neutrally, and it just feels comfortable. And if I didn't like something, I wouldn't hesitate to change the part.
So actually, Joel, I mean, I should disclose this. I do have a financial relationship with Tanfoglio, but does it really affect which pistols I like to use? Because I shoot other pistols in competition as well. I have to say, subjectively, I like the feel. I like the frame of these pistols a lot. And that's why I've gravitated towards these. I like them. They're nice. Like, they feel nice. And that's kind of a weird thing to hang your hat on if you're like reviewing a pistol for other people. But it's like the Shadow 2s. It's a really nice gun, but it does have a different size frame. The frame's a little bit longer. So I would say most people with like average size adult male hands, they will often subjectively report that they prefer the feel of this gun. Even if they don't use one or they don't like the function of it, they'll say, hey, I like the feel of it. I like the way it sits in my hand or whatever. I think that's definitely fair to say.
I agree.
Let's talk about a few other favorite things about it. So in terms of durability and ruggedness, I think I've had very good luck with these pistols. So I've been shooting these, I think, 8 years in competition. I have, I don't know, 15 or 20 of them, a lot of them. And under normal use conditions, just taking them to the range and shooting them a lot. You don't have to clean them a whole lot. You don't have to baby them a whole lot. Parts breakages are very infrequent, and maintenance is pretty easy. I will say that's a big plus with these. Any other favorite features?
Well, I agree with what you're saying a lot. Like, if this gun jams, it's not for no reason, which we can get into maintenance in a bit. But like you said, I'm not the most skilled gunsmith, I suppose, kind of guy. And just with watching a YouTube video, having a few punches, and you know, those pliers and a hammer, like, I figured out by watching a YouTube video. I'd seen other people do it, but I was able to take this thing apart and put it back together, and it wasn't, you know, anything too crazy. So I like that part a lot, that you don't have to have, you know, any specialty tools or anything like that. It's an easy pistol for anybody to work on.
Yeah. And what about the least favorite things?
I'm going to be real. The guns overall, like quality control, like fit and finish. Sometimes the guns are, I would say they vary from gun to gun, I think is a fair way of saying it. Whereas some guns feel a little bit more polished or a little bit better trigger. And then some guns, you know, it's like the old joke, like the Friday afternoon gun. It's not like it's a gun that's not functional, but cosmetically, I think the guns do, you know, from gun to gun, they vary a little bit. Is that fair?
Yeah, no, definitely. And it's a boutique manufacturer. They make small numbers of guns for the competition market. So they just don't turn out as many stuff. They have more hand-fitted stuff that they're doing. It's definitely fair to say that, the QC on these is not as tight as something like a Glock. It's just not. So when you get these, of course, I do this with Glocks anyway, but when I get a new one of these, I test it, shoot it a bunch, make sure that it's running good. If it's not, they'll be like, oh, just put in a new extractor spring or something to make sure that that's tight or whatever. Usually there's no problems. Sometimes there is, but you will hear reports of that with these pistols. That's just the way it goes sometimes.
Yeah. But I think it's kind of important. The person that buys this normally for competition, you can look at our pistols. This one's a 3-year-old gun, but it's got scratches, scrapes, wear mark. The finish wore off. You don't necessarily buy these. Like this market is not necessarily for a gun that's a safe queen. You buy them to use them. So
right. That's why. We're planning on shooting the guns until they break anyway, no matter what type of gun it is. And so competition shooting guns get destroyed in the course of use. This pistol I have here, I think I've shot nationals with it like twice, maybe 2 or 3 times. And it probably has 80,000 rounds through it between matches and training. It's been shot a fair bit. And yeah, it shows it's been shot up, it's been used. It's still perfectly functional though. Yeah.
I agree. So let's briefly talk about maintenance, breakage. Like if somebody buys one of these, what are they getting into?
All right. So maintenance wise, I keep my guns pretty dry. So it's not like you clean them every time you shoot them. Not anything like that. But you can shoot 5,000 rounds. Usually is what I'd expect without a problem and without cleaning them really. After that, you probably want to clean it. Yeah, that's a lot.
That's a lot.
Yeah, I shoot mine a lot. I would clean it before I go to a big match, of course. But yeah, you could shoot it a while without cleaning it. The things to watch out for, like any 9mm pistol design like this, you want to pay attention to the extractor quite a lot. So if you're having a problem with the pistol running, it's usually going to be the extractor, and it's one pin in there. You knock it out. You can clean the extractor. You can replace it. You can put in a high power extractor spring. Between those 3 possibilities, you can fix pretty much anything that's like, if this pistol's not running, it's almost always the extractor, and it's almost always that the extractor is worn, damaged, or dirty. Like that'll be the issue. I think that's fair to say.
I share that assessment as well. Yep. Maybe we shoot the gun so much where the extractor, the hook will get worn off, or maybe it's rounded, or it's not sharp anymore, or go ahead.
Yeah, it's like a 30 or 40,000 round thing. Like once you put that many rounds in the extractor, it's such a cheap part that you might as well change it, because you can see they start to radius off.
Yep. But yeah, we're basically shooting the guns to the point of failure for a gun that, to practice with, and before you take it to a match, you'd make sure it's pristine.
Yeah. Now I will say, if the 9mm variants of this, I used to hear a lot of reports about the rear sights being an issue because, adjustable rear sights, that's another failure point to put on the gun. I haven't had issues with the rear sights on these. I haven't seen a lot unless you're shooting the 40 caliber guns. But with 9mm, the guns are very rugged. They have very little breakage. Slide stops are a common thing that'll break on other pistols designed this way that look similar. These slide stops don't really break in 9mm. The sights don't really break. If the front sight's installed correctly, it'll stay put. It won't fly off. Yeah, and I should say, if you mess around with the trigger, do a trigger job on the pistol, that tends to hold pretty good. Quite honestly, because of the way they make the metals with I think it's fairly hard metal that they're using to make the hammers and sears. So as long as you don't, grind that off, everything should stay put.
Yeah, grind off that coating. Yeah, polishing is fine for all those parts. The other point I guess we'd say is the only type that you'd maybe see issues or breakage or issues with setting the gun off is some people fall in love with having a really, really light trigger, and they put springs in it that are too light, and then the next thing you know, you're having ignition problems where it's not enough power to, when the hammer goes forward, to set off the primer reliably, and people really fall in love with the light triggers. That's kind of the only word of warning I'd have with these is, you can get these triggers really, really light. They're very, very nice. But if you start shooting them a lot, you shoot them 5,000 rounds, 10,000 rounds, those super light springs, they start to take a set a little bit, or they're not quite as strong as they once were. You can run into problems. So I always just err on the side of reliability and making sure I have a trigger that's plenty heavy.
Yeah. Well, I should say, I mean, you might be thinking the obvious answer is don't do a trigger job on the gun. But that's not really the answer. I should say, out of the box, if you're buying a stock one of these or a plain one, you're going to want to do a trigger job. I mean, I think that's fair to say, because the triggers they're just too heavy. They're not going to be what you want to use for a practical shooting match. So you're going to have to do a trigger job, as long as you don't take it to the point of as light as possible or making it as unrealistic as possible. Then you shouldn't have any problems. Just you swap a couple springs and the trigger should get pretty close to where you need it to be. If you start going further than that, you can make problems for yourself. But I suppose that's true of just about any gun.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, so who is this for?
I suppose anyone that shoots competition, this is a great fit. Even for casual shooters, honestly, like I take my dad out to the range. He loves shooting this gun because it's a heavy gun. It shoots really soft. The only person I think this gun is not for is somebody that wants to buy a gun and kind of has the Glock mentality, where I just want to shoot it a bunch. I don't ever want to clean it. I don't want something I have to think about or take care of. And this isn't the gun for that person. If they want a gun that you just buy ammo, I never clean it, and I don't have to really look after it.
Yeah. I would say I agree with a lot of what you're saying, but this is a good fit. Like if you like the frame, if the frame feels good for you and you're going to be shooting a lot of matches, this is one that I would take a look at. It's not going to be as low effort as, the main competitor would be like a Shadow 2. So if you like the feel of this a lot more than a Shadow 2, it's probably worth taking a look at maybe getting this one instead. Otherwise, obviously Shadow 2s are fine. There's plenty of alternatives to this gun, but this would be for if like you pick it up and you love the feel of it like we do. And that's not an uncommon phenomenon, really.
It is not. No, and honestly, like I've shot Shadow 2s, I've shot other guns. And when I pick this gun up, it just feels, even now, messing with it, this gun just feels right in my hands.
Yeah.
The way, like Ben said, the way the frame's shaped, the way I have grips on it, it's just like, it's perfect.
Yeah. Yep. The weight and balance, you're like, okay, this feels really good. If you're one of those people, if you pick one of these up and you really like it, then I'd take a look at getting it. Otherwise, there's plenty of alternatives that are, will get you to the same place. I think that's the best way to put it. Well, all right, Joel, you killed it. So, listeners, if you have another piece of gear that you'd like to see reviewed, put it down below, and we'll be systematically reviewing all sorts of equipment that you might use for practical shooting. So put them down below, guys.